Well, a beautiful morning here to start the month of March, and March sometimes is in like a lion and out like a lamb. This big region of high pressure that's sitting just to our north and west is going to ensure that the first couple of days of March are a little bit chilly, but really after that it's going to be a beautiful week. Temperatures in the mid 40s, sunny every day. I think we're going to see a huge amount of this snow disappear, even though we've had it sitting around for quite a long time. So the main weather story of today around the country is this pretty intense cyclone that's up over northern Quebec, spreading snow over most of the state of Maine and into the maritime provinces of Canada. And with its trailing cold front all the way down to the Gulf Coast of Texas, there's nearly a continuous band of precipitation all the way from that region back up to maritime Canada. So one of the more impressively structured extratropical cyclone and fronts that we've seen in a couple of weeks over the continental United States and adjacent waters. So pretty nice situation for us this morning. Before I go on, I want to just point out that the month of March heralds the end of meteorological winter. And so I want to just give a recap of what we've had for our meteorological winter this year. And that is, remember when I talked about in class the aerial extent of the cold air at 850 millibars, 1 mile above ground, where the air was colder than -5 degrees. Well, this is the meteorological winter time series for this year, 2021. The red line is the actual value of the cold pool aerial extent every day, and the thin blue lines are the maximum and minimum for those calendar days through the 73-year time series, and then the solid blue line in the middle of the gray shading represents the daily average for each calendar day, and then plus and minus 1 standard deviation. So the red line testifies to a winter where we hardly, and this is for the whole northern hemisphere now, where we hardly ever went above the average, and we never even came close to being substantially above average, perhaps with the exception of mid-December. And when one tallies all of these departures from the daily average up over the course of the 90-day winter, this turns out to be the 9th warmest winter since 1948-49 in the Northern Hemisphere. So that is quite unusual for the winter time to be that warm, even with, in the last month, last couple of weeks especially, our cold spell over huge areas of North America. So the hemisphere as a whole was much warmer than normal for this whole year. Now, another interesting thing about this is that the month of February in Madison ended up being 10.7 degrees below normal. And that's the first time that we've had a below normal month to that degree, 10 degrees or more below normal, since the month of December 2000, which was just a magnificent month for winter weather. We had the 4th snowiest winter, I think, of December of all time and the coldest December of all time. So it was really quite an incredible event, but that was more than 20 years ago now. So we haven't done this in 20 years. In fact, since 1940, there have only been 11 months, calendar months in Madison, that have been 10 degrees or more below normal. And all of them have occurred in the months of November, December, January, and February. Not a single instance of that occurring in any other month of the year. So pretty incredible what we've just been through. Now, the temperatures this morning around the country give an indication that this month will come in rather cold in certain locations, including ours. Look at these temperatures in the single digits and below zero across Minnesota and the Dakotas. We're at 22 this morning, and this cold air is invading, so we'll have a chilly day today and a cold night tonight. After that, we'll have a nice recovery. Very warm down in the southern states. Beautiful day in Miami, 76, 72 in St. Pete, 68 in Jacksonville, 60s all the way up to the Carolinas, and so a really nice first day of March for that part of the country. Other than that, it is pretty chilly everywhere. Some of this is because it's early in the day in Seattle and Portland, but nonetheless, not a particularly warm morning, but certainly not a particularly cold one, except in the far western Great Lakes and northern Plains states, but that will invade over us in the next couple of days. So here's our satellite movie over the continental 48 and adjacent waters, and there's the beautiful cyclone that's kind of right, the center of the circulation is up over northern Quebec, and as you can see, this cloud stream comes all the way across the Baja of California, across central Mexico, and then straight up through the southern states of our own country and up into maritime Canada. So a really extended disturbance in the flow, and that's causing substantial weather across much of the eastern part of the United States today. And there's a little bit of circulation, cyclonic circulations south of Greenland, and one doesn't see too much on this oblique view of the west coast, but we'll get there in a minute. So this is the main weather story in the United States today. So let's take a look at the radar across the country, and that's right here. And so one can see a nearly continuous band of precipitation all the way from New Brunswick down to central Texas. And then lines of interesting convective activity going through Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia. See that line right there? That's really neat. If you were underneath it, you'd get about a 5 or 10 minute sprinkle because it's got a pretty decent amount of speed to it. And then you'd have more rain coming later in the day, whereas we have just about nothing coming over us. A little bit of light snow this morning. You might have seen a flurry around 7 o'clock. And then the western 2/3 or more of the country, absolutely precipitation-less this morning. And then the West Coast satellite image is really interesting. We see a kind of an unusual feature that is not often detectable in the clouds. And that is, here's a really strong flow poleward and to the northeast of clouds and presumably moisture. And notice on the western side of that in the Bering Sea, there's a counterclockwise rotation of the clouds. That's a cyclone. And on the eastern side of this stream, look at how the clouds are clearly turning clockwise, so anticyclonically. That's a really confused flow because then immediately downstream there's yet another region along the British Columbia coast of counterclockwise flow. So very high amplitude, lots of waves crammed into a small little distance here. And especially noteworthy is the obvious anticyclonic rotation that can be traced out in these clouds. Because as we'll learn later on, cyclonic disturbances like the ones in the Gulf of Alaska characteristically are associated with the production of clouds. But anticyclonic circulations are much more often associated with the sinking of air and the prohibition of cloud production. So this is a rare sight indeed. Not particularly important in terms of what comes next for the weather, but just noteworthy. Okay,